How wonderful is it that our lives move through dynamic rhythms, familiar cycles, and evolving spirals. This is the way of the whole universe, from the tiniest atomic relationships to vast astronomical phenomena. We find ourselves somewhere between the macrocosm and the microcosm, these dances of creation, rooted in bodies, in communities, in biomes that are ever moving, ever changing, ever returning and transforming. This is the fundamental nature of our existences, the essential nature of life itself. We exist not bound by immutable time, forever trapped in fixed circumstances or locked in an unchanging reality. Existence has a way of finding a dynamic balance, maintaining an equilibrium between change and stability that is conducive to life. The activities and exhaustions of the daylight hours are followed by the slowing down and the stillness of the darkness of night. Day to night and night to day, our lives move through this balance as we cycle through time. The light half of the year, the springtime and the summer, when sunlight, warmth, and abundance abound, is followed by the dark half of the year, the autumn and the winter, when the shadows grow long, the air becomes cool, and barrenness overcomes the land. Spring to summer, summer to autumn, autumn to winter, and winter to spring, the star wheel forever turns, and we too move with it. Beings born of the seasons, the cycles, the spirals, forever turning through the climes of existence with the whole interdependent web. The rhythms of being are miraculous and should turn our hearts to wonder and our spirits to awe before this living, interdependent web. Since ancient times, humanity has gathered in religious communities, often around a sacred flame, to step out from the immediacy of our ordinary experience, out from the preoccupations that busy our lives, to remember that we are part of something larger, that our lives turn with the turning star wheel, that the interdependent web of life is not static, but ever being stretched and spun, woven and rewoven, if we but step back and witness to this greater order of being, the rhythms of nature and the dances of the cosmos itself. In this season of Passover, Rabbi Laura Geller reminded us that part of the spiritual message of the Israelites' escape from Egypt is liberation from the existential narrowness that can sometimes distort or even dull our sense of life. We have to continually return to these larger patterns of life, the rhythms which beat in the beating of our hearts, in the cycles of our breath, in the transitions of the natural world, in the movement of the stars in the sky above us, to even grasp a fraction of the magnificence of this continual blossoming of existence. Left to our own devices, it's so easy to become entrenched in our consumer culture, dazzled by material things, ensconced in the next doctor's appointment, the soccer practice schedule, our to-do list, the many ordinary and necessary and meaningful preoccupations of life. But it's in religious community that we can transcend all of this just momentarily, now and again, and witness to our lives in their larger context. We remember in beloved community all those who have come before us, the mighty cloud of witnesses that enfolds us, and the generations that will follow us, whose way we have been preparing all of this time, just as it was prepared for us. It that is gathered around the sacred flame. The ever-burning reality of life, of the improbable somethingness that exists amidst the possibility of nothingness. That the stories of human life are lived and retold and shaped and refined and passed on from one generation to the next. Religious tradition is the compendium of this experience as it's ordered and ritualized, and it takes on various symbolic and mythic forms to help each gathering, each community, each generation remember the dimensions of life that transcend the ordinary, to remember what we might call the spiritual or the sacred dimensions of our beings, of our togetherness, of this life. Religious traditions, all of these stories and symbols and myths are then remembered and re-remembered and retold and embedded in the larger dynamic rhythms, the familiar cycles, the evolving spirals of our existence. Our transit around the sun and the moon spiraling around the earth are two of the fundamental rhythms that become encoded with experience, wisdom, and the traditions of various religions. This is what we call the flow of the liturgical year, the ever-evolving cycle of religious observances, activities, and rituals that help us to commune with that which we hold to be of ultimate worth and that which reminds us of our amazing place in this living universe. We've gathered for worship, which is the lifting up of that which we hold to be of ultimate worth, for centuries in the context of our liberal religious tradition. Our practices evolved from the liturgical year of the Christian tradition, which lifted up the sacred moments and values and wisdoms in their stories and spread them out over the course of a calendar year. They often superimpose them on the liturgical year of the Jewish holidays and pagan festivals as these traditions interacted with each other over time. Now you may be wondering, well, what does liturgical mean? And it simply references public worship and all of the ongoing work that people have engaged in and have engaged with since probably the beginning of human existence to bring communal worship into being. Our liturgy is public in that it's an offering to the whole community, not just ourselves or our community. It's intended to be a gift of that which we hold to be of the greatest value and importance to humanity in the furtherance of the living tradition we share in the world, that we share with the world. It's intended to provide spiritual nourishment, to help us fulfill our callings to be of service to our congregation, our larger community, and our world. Our worship embodies our principles and values, our noble heritage and future aspirations, and our commitments to creating the beloved community. Now, the Christian liturgical year, which is where we find our origin, divides the year into roughly two halves. A sacred half, which begins around December and lasts until about the end of spring, so we all know what's happening in there. And then in the sacred half begins with the Advent season, which anticipates the birth of the Messiah, and that season culminates in the Christian Christmas holiday and then Epiphany. A short respite of ordinary time then ensues until Lent, which culminates in Holy Week, and then Pentecost follows. So you may be familiar with this pattern of affairs. Throughout the whole calendar year, the liturgy of the Christian churches is largely uniform in that in each Sunday, no matter what church you go to, of any denomination, they have a common lectionary of shared scriptural readings and themes that you'll hear about on any given Sunday in any Christian church anywhere in the world. Now, unlike our tradition where we reinvent the wheel every week, you can walk into most of these churches and anticipate what you're going to hear what's going to be read and what's going to be preached, filtered through the particular tradition and clergy persons applying those teachings to the daily life of their faithful. This formula of the liturgical year shaped our own traditions, practices, and our living tradition of independent and interdependent congregations. And we've evolved something of our own unique liturgical year that reflects our heritage, the histories of our members and friends and communities, the influences of our ministers across time, and our cultural location in Southern California. Now, while the Christian tradition has a lectionary, which includes these programmed readings of sacred texts and themes for each Sunday, and the Jewish tradition similarly reads through the entirety of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, peace be upon him, through their liturgical year, we've embraced Unitarian Universalist theme-based ministry, which allows us to move through monthly themes of a more universal spiritual nature. Around the last turn of the century, sounds really long ago, doesn't it? Unitarian Universalists began to realize that without a lectionary giving us prescriptions for the elements of each service, we had to entirely reinvent this wheel each Sunday. And as a Jewish leader recently offered to me, well, that's stupid. So we have something to learn from our Jewish and Christian forebears. And theme-based ministry ensures that you're not just hearing about the preferred topics of a given minister or congregation, but that you're encouraged to consider a whole range of subjects relevant to liberal religious life. In this past church year, we've considered themes on welcome, heritage, mystery, liberating love, and the new proposed UU values of generosity, justice, transformation, interdependence, this month's theme, and pluralism and renewal will follow in the months ahead. We use a program called Soul Matters, which provides themes and resources so that we can reflect on them in our publications, our worship services, our chalice circles, and our other meetings of the church. Next year's themes, which just came out yesterday, which was quite timely as I was working on this sermon, include invitation, deep listening, repair, and presence, and they'll help to stimulate our congregation's creativity. Now, our liturgical year, in addition to these monthly themes, moves through the 4 seasons of the autumn, the winter, the spring, and the summer, which helps us to connect with our 7th UU principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part, and our 6th UU source, spiritual teachings of earth-based traditions, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Our liturgical year reflects the holidays that are unique to our Unitarian Universalist heritage, also our multi-religious embrace, and our commitments to social justice, anti-racism, and countering oppressions. The 4 seasons we move through begin with the start of the church year in the late summer and early autumn. This is our time of homecoming and heritage, when we inaugurate a new church year and remember the special occasions of our common history. Begins with the gathering of the streams of our lives at our annual water communion ceremony, and then remembers our heritage and multi-religious embrace with an honoring of the Jewish High Holy Days, a celebration of multiculturalism and our ancestors with Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, and then an offering of gratitude and grief with an acknowledgement of thanksgiving and thanks-grieving, which challenge colonial holidays and offer broader ways of remembering and memorializing the past. We then also go to camp, and we worship amidst the mountains and the pine trees beyond our sanctuary. Now, the winter season in our liturgical year is a time of growing darkness, of kindling lights, and of new birth. It includes the winter holidays of our heritage and multi-religious embrace, Hanukkah and the winter solstice, and the largest service of our year, the candlelight Christmas Eve service, and then New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Day, and a holiday which I added to expand our pluralistic tradition, the Hindu holiday of Shivaratri, which our Swami joined us for a few weeks ago, if you were here. The spring season of the liturgical year is our time of abundance, of generosity and vitality. It includes Passover, this year Ramadan, Easter, Earth Day, Flower Communion, our stewardship campaign, the Buddha's birthday, Mother's Day, Father's Day, and our youth, volunteer, and staff appreciation services. We, like most Unitarian Universalist congregations, conclude our regular church year and begin the transition to the more spacious summer months by attending either in person or virtually the annual Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly, which is when our entire movement across the country and around the world joins together for a week of workshops and associational business meetings, those are fun, and ends with one Sunday worship, which is actually fun, that includes Unitarian Universalists from across the country. That we live stream it here in our sanctuary each year. This is followed by these summer months of pride, adventures, and play, and the celebrations of LGBTIAQ pride, Juneteenth, and the labor movement. Now, when we live our lives in liberal religious community and we participate in a liturgical year, it helps us to reflect on the great religious themes of existence. It elevates us to remember the world beyond ourselves. And it helps us to live our principles, our values, and our commitments with others as we grow beloved community together. Let's be grateful for the dynamic rhythms, familiar cycles, and evolving spirals through which our lives move and are transformed, so that we might have life and have it in great abundance. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.